At SFE Partners, we specialize in driving growth for mid-market, B2B, and private equity companies through tailored sales and marketing solutions. By aligning people, processes, and technology, we help businesses scale, optimize performance, and achieve measurable results. On this episode of Billable Banter, marketing team associates Nick Cefalo, Destyne Greenwood, and Nick Gosselin take a look back in time for a discussion on Henry Ford's groundbreaking business model, approach, and focus on standardization with a tie-in on how the core ideas can be applied to the business strategies of today.
Welcome back to another episode of Billable Banter, where we break down strategies, insights, and trends that matter most to B2B and PE firms. I'm Nick Cefalo. I'll be your host today. With me is Destyne Greenwood and our amazing Nick Gosselin. On today's episode, we're going to be looking at Henry Ford. We're going to be looking at the assembly line and standardization business model that he used and how we can apply it in today's world. And before we get too into it, Nick came across a really good stat that he's going to share with us now.
Yeah, so private equity-backed companies that integrated analytics and automation saw a 9.4% sales uplift, as well as stronger operations and improved valuations.
And with that stat, why is that important, Nick, for our listeners and how we help clients at SFE?
I think it's important when you actually stop to think about it, how significant that number is, and then if the listeners were to ask themselves, like, are we doing this? Because we see a lot that automation isn't really a thing. Even if it's, in workflows for emails, if it's something about just a notification, something so simple as that, there's a lot that's being left to manual entry, and it's just chewing up hours of the day that there's no reason for it to be.
Do you feel like that is, I think with a lot of our clients and prospects that we talk to and different things like that, especially in the B2B middle market and private equity lane, a lot of these companies have technology tools that have automation, but people are either not utilizing them, or we hear that magic phrase, well, my company's really unique in this way, or we do it very different like this. Do you feel that is playing a huge impact, and how are we pulling in good old Henry Ford to connect it all?
So, perfect question to kind of tie it all together. And we do hear the, it's unique situation quite a bit. And
which they are.
They are unique situations. I'm not downplaying that, but
there's been a lot of unique situations that we've walked into.
And somehow I always manage to be surprised in some way. And I think that's kind of that Henry Ford model, is that, you're getting all these unique instances because there's too much customization. People, teams, they're almost too accommodating, where somebody will come up and say, I need this, if it's a dashboard, if it's, a field to be entered, some sort of metric, they need it, and there's no justification on why it's needed, and it just gets put into place. And, one might not seem so bad, but it just keeps going, it keeps compounding, and eventually you've built out this system that is just too complex, it's too unique to be able to get automation in place the way that it should be. So, when we're looking at the kind of Henry Ford model is...
Can you take us down a history lesson before we jump right into it? Before our listeners that may not be history buffs or know the name but don't know exactly, and I'll use myself as an example when you brought up this topic.
Sure. So I'm not going to attempt to name when it went in, but Henry Ford was known for, obviously, the Ford Motor Company, and, the Model T, and his famous quote, my customers can have it in any color as long as it's black. Just no customizing, which was a little extreme, but really what he did that, we're really focusing on is a few things. Is he made, he was able to mass produce and efficiently cutting, I think the time went from like, I'm going to butcher this. It was something like 12 months. Nick, can you check me on this one? Down to like 12 days, maybe down to 90 minutes. I forget what it was exactly. But with the assembly line and standardization, he was really able to kind of cut that process down significantly. He also paid his employees something like $5 more a day than on average, which, he had those great employees that are following this process, and he was able to keep that retention high because of it. He also, I guess, treated his employees almost like customers, and makes sense. If you're selling a product, that's an easy win. Not only is it an easy win to get that, potential customer, but who better to give you feedback and help improve it than the person that's buying it and working on it.
So are you saying that employers should look to hire employees that are possibly their client or their customer?
I think yes. So I mean, I think it all kind of depends on the role too. But you definitely want somebody that's, passionate about what you're doing. And I think that's a big part of it. Even if they can't be your customer, depending on what you're selling, what your service is, you want somebody that wants to be a part of that finds the value of what you are selling and wants to become a part of that team. I think that creates a big part of the culture, the productivity, and, everything that goes along with it. So that's the kind of real quick summary and history lesson. And I'm sure Nick will get back to us someday on the number that he was able to do.
So he was able to cut it down nearly 87%. It took over 12 hours to build the Model 1, or the 1 Model T car. And then the following year, after he implemented his moving assembly line, it dropped to 1 hour and 33 minutes per car.
All right, so let's pretty go with my 12 days and down to 90 minutes.
You were pretty close.
Yeah,
but I feel like the main point of this was that he wasn't, what he was doing was unique. This car company was making a car, but so was he. But he was doing it in a more unique, efficient, and effective way, which is why he was able to scale. So going back to that over customization and things like that we typically see within organizations, when they take their model and they over customize it and they don't create a plan and a structure on how to get to the end result, that causes friction and chaos and the hard ability for either portfolio companies under a PE firm to scale, or if you're a founder-led business and you're trying to get acquired from a PE company and your process is so overcomplicated and so unique, while yes, your business is unique, your process should be pretty standard, that's going to cause huge issues with you getting acquired, but also decrease your valuation, where if you have the automation in place, like Nick said, it's a 9% increase in your business, which right there shows the importance of getting these processes in place and utilizing the technology and the automation that's in place, right?
No, 100%. I think, a big part of that is that standardization, like you were saying, that with all that customization, you can't properly put in automation and get the results needed when there's just too many kind of, unknowns that are there. And that's a lot of times what we see is that even if an automation is in place, it's not necessarily doing or collecting the right thing because of how unique these systems are. And it could even be that the automation was put in place at a time before additional customization was put in. So, maybe that automation was right at the time, but because you keep, customizing and adding all these unique components, it's no longer working. So being able to have that standardization, that, some sort of kind of playbook that says this is what happens if you want to add a field into, whatever it is, or you want to add a dashboard or whatever it is like that, just being able to point why you need it and make sure that it's not just something for one person, but it's something that, everybody can benefit from. When we talk about automation too, and Nick talks about that number about increasing business, it's not just about like the sales too. It's, what could you do with that time? If you automated, even if it's, 30 minutes a day, let's add that up over the week, over the month, over the year. That's a lot. I'm not going to try to do that math because that's not my strong point. But if I was, it would be a great number that I could reference. But what could you do with that time instead? What could your entire staff do with that time instead? So there's a lot that can be said about finding those little things and how to automate it. And it really just starts with making sure the system that you have in place allows for that automation, that it's set up correctly so that if the automation runs, you're not going in there constantly kind of have to fix things, figure out what went wrong, why, certain numbers aren't looking the right way. But that's just my humble opinion. What about yourself?
I think that we see it a lot with our own clients when we go in. They either think, oh, we have to get a whole new CRM, or we need to hire like these more people for operations because it's taking so much time to data entry or anything like that. And I think we found solutions. We call them champion groups, but it's, individuals that companies identify that are strong in a lot of the different areas, whether it's marketing, sales, operations, inside biz dev, leadership. We get them all in a room and they talk about their process and their day-to-day activities, and we can easily identify right off the bat the information that's important to some is not important for others. So there's view changes that can be done. There's fields that can be required, fields that are not necessary, and creating that standardization then puts in place a better automation process. But do you feel that companies are taking the time to actually look at that in order to put the automation? Or do you feel, and I have my own opinion about it, but do you feel that a lot of companies that we work with are doing them within department-based?
So you brought up a good point along the way there too. So I'm going to answer that, but I'm going to touch on something you just said too, is that, a lot of times when we talk to these departments or owners, it usually starts off the conversation being with, I don't know if our CRM is correct. Is this the right CRM for us? Are we using the right system? Is there a better system in place? And chances are they're using the right tools, but they're not using them the right way. And, it does start at one point based on department. I think a lot of it too is lack of insight on what everybody is doing and what everybody needs. So when you have, the people in charge of your tech stack and they get a request from marketing saying, we need this, they're like, okay, and they add it, trying to be helpful and just not knowing. Salesperson will come and say, I need this kind of KPI or I need this dashboard view. And again, lack of insight, it gets put in place, and it just kind of continues, it seems like, and then everybody comes in and it just keeps adding. And, the team putting in place these changes, nothing's been said to them. They think what they're doing is good. And so they keep going about adding these changes as they come in. And then one day it's just the system breaks basically because there's so much customization that any reporting that's coming out is just all over the place. You're not getting numbers that match. You're not seeing the data that you want to see or getting the insights that you want to see. The pipeline kind of is broken and your forecasting is not accurate whatsoever. And, so you usually have kind of the owners or whoever it is, managers thinking that they might not even know all these changes and customizations were put into place. So they're looking at the system like, oh man, this system just can't handle what we need it to do. And usually 9 out of 10 times that's not the case. It's just there's been so many little changes that they've just compounded and grown so out of hand that you've made an environment that really no system can handle. It's not necessarily just because of the system that you're using. It's this environment is so unique that there's no system that can really, handle it. And usually it's kind of, you have to look at it, see exactly what's needed, like the bare minimum that each team or each department can do, and try to get as close to that out-of-box state as you can, get that standardization back in place, and then go from there and start putting in those kind of automations that can be used to help free up the time and make sure all the reporting and everything else like that is done correctly.
So with all of the over customization that's happening that we see within CRMs or marketing platforms or all of the above, what are some 3 active steps companies can be taking to help minimize the over customization?
Yeah. So I guess kind of a more general approach, because again, there are definitely some cases where there are unique scenarios, and certain teams in certain companies, depending on the environment, might need, a little bit different of approach. But I think, for each team or department, there really needs to be, one person that has that insight from everything. Or, if you have your sales team report to one person as for if they're having any issues with technology, if they need anything kind of added to it, and then have that one person kind of be responsible for talking to, the tech team that implements these changes, and just making sure that everybody is not just kind of throwing out whatever and it's getting put in. This helps with the standardization, making sure that things aren't getting too customized. But also, when you do this, it kind of creates like this unique opening, I guess, that we've seen where people request certain things, but it already exists and they weren't aware of it for whatever reason. Emails might have been sent out, there might have been meetings about it, but for whatever reason, not everybody is aware of it. So when you kind of put these people in place, we've called them champions before, or whatever else you might want to call it, but it also allows that standardization, but allows for, to spot those training areas that like inefficiencies that you might need to go back on. Like, this is already in place, but yet I've had several people from this department say we need this. It's already there. Do they not know? Was there not something sent out? Is it, what I mean? It allows you to also kind of spot those areas a lot more efficiently. So yeah, I would say kind of having that one person that each team kind of talks to, that, approves these requests that go in for these kind of tech changes, so it doesn't get, over customized. And I think it starts there because, again, the next thing is you want automation. I mean, as much as you can without over customizing. I can't tell you how many times we've talked to, owners and managers who have been like, if I had more time, I could do this, this, and this. And we're like, well, what are you doing? Like, what's your day consist of? And it's little things like pulling up a report or trying to see, who did what for the day, activities, looking at the pipeline. And it's like, all of this could be automated. Like, you shouldn't have to do any of this. You could set up an email that gets sent to you at the end of the day, in the middle of the day, whatever you want. But like, once these things are in place, you shouldn't have to do any of this. You should have that time that you're looking to, but
it's death by 1,000 paper cuts.
100%. So those are my 2, but I'm curious actually to hear yours. I know you said 3, but I'm going to shift it back on you and hear what you come up with.
All right, I'll give the 3rd.
Yeah.
I think the 3rd piece could be the open communication of introducing technology tools. I think a lot of the times the marketing team will say they need this tool and sales says they need this tool and finance needs this tool. But a lot of the times I don't think people understand. A lot of the time, many teams don't even know that that piece of technology is already in place. Maybe there's just an extra feature that could be unlocked and you don't need to adopt a whole new platform. You can unlock a platform you already have, but maybe it's an area. We'll use HubSpot since HubSpot, we're a partner of HubSpot. We might have marketing, but we didn't have CRM. We have it all, but you know what I mean? They may not know, so they might go right to Salesforce. Well, Salesforce is huge, and it is very powerful for certain companies, but it doesn't always fit. One CRM does not fit for every company, and we've seen that very clearly. And they're all great, but they all work in different ways. So when someone does say, like, my company is very unique, like, yes, it is 100% unique. but there are tools that can help you. And so getting back to the automation piece of this, automation, and I think we are very heavy into like the automation of everything and all the tech tools, but even individual automation. How can we automate the leads going through the funnel? You know, from lead scoring to all of that, putting that in place. Doing that changes the way we look and forecast the business. We can watch them go through the sales cycle. We can watch that automation work in its place. Automation doesn't have to take the human aspect out of it either. I think especially we were talking about AI earlier and all the different features, and you love AI and different things that it can build. Using AI to take the tone of your voice and different things like that and create maybe these sales emails that you can automate without it feeling so automated. How many emails do we all get in our inbox that we just delete, we don't even open? It's getting to the point, well, yeah, if you hit them so many times, it may bite. We're losing the aspect of, I think the biggest thing is that a lot of people worry that automation, you're going to lose the human aspect. And I think that goes hand in hand with AI also.
Yeah.
How do companies feel secure with what they're doing without spamming people with automation, whether it's marketing emails or sales emails or things like that, but using it as like a tool in your toolbox and not just something pasta to slap at the wall and hopefully it sticks?
So it's funny that you said it because I haven't really thought of it like that. And I get some might be hesitant on kind of like having AI kind of do the messaging and kind of get away from that personal touch. But what's funny is that when I'm thinking of automation, a lot of it that, we're saying can be done and potentially should be done, that's not be done, aren't even things that require human touch. It's those mindless things like going in and generating a report or, trying to find a certain dashboard and, sharing that with something. Like there's certain things that, again, just require no human element. So that way, like, you feel like you're actually talking to a person. That is really what we're seeing, is that kind of like basic kind of anybody can go in there, click through, look up something, pull a report, email it out. Like
example being a salesperson on Fridays has to send a report to their manager, and then the manager gets 5 different reports instead of the system automating all 5 of their direct reports into a report that gets automated and delivered over to the sales manager at 5 p.m. on Fridays without anyone having to do anything.
100%. And the beautiful thing about that is you don't have to worry about somebody being out sick or on vacation. You always get their report on Friday at 5 o'clock, which is another big point that, automation helps with this. It takes out the human element, but in a good way. So you don't have to worry about, somebody not being there and not getting the information that you need when it's supposed to be there.
In remote companies, you can work anywhere, anytime, which that model is being used very all over the place. Having an automated system that does it by this time, it sets the tone no matter what. It's a standardized process. So if you're in Italy, but, we're here in Boston, the report's still coming at the same time. It doesn't matter. You just need to get your stuff done at the specific times that you need to get it done without any thinking. That time that it took that sales rep to download the report, look at the report, send it to their manager, that's 30 minutes of their time. And like you said, we won't do math because we know math's not our strong suit. That's why we do what we do. And we have people that do the math. That time, now can you spend that getting a couple more sales emails out to potential prospects? Can you take that time and send customized, individual, personalized notes to maybe customers that you had in the past that maybe you're re-engaging with, and utilizing it that time to do that versus sending a report of what you did to your manager? Like that right there is a value by using the automation and using it the right way. So do we feel like a lot of the times companies are looking at automation just from, a tech perspective or things like that, but you'd be looking at it at a much more broader way. CEOs, maybe using automation to craft all your email replies, but not sending them until they can go through and look at it. That right there just saved a CEO how much time?
Yep, no, 100%. You can use automation in a lot of different ways that can help really anybody in the company just save time and kind of do some of those more mindless things. But again, it just starts with that standardization and making sure the information that you're putting in is right and it's not over customized, so you're getting, a ton of background noise. You're just getting what you need. But yeah, I mean, as we look at kind of, again, the Henry Ford model, and, we go back to something else that you said was that, about using HubSpot and, versus switching over to Salesforce is, you look at that kind of lean manufacturing and, it's not necessarily about what else is there, what else can we add, what else can we add to our tech stack that can do these things, but looking at what you have now and is it being used fully to its capabilities and is it being used correctly? Like, if you don't need to implement new tools, don't use what you have, but use it correctly. And, once you have that all running the way that it should be and it's effective, maybe then you start to look out and find other ways that you can kind of improve and automate certain processes. But really just making sure that your home's in order first before you start kind of looking out to see what else you can do.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's one of the biggest areas that we see is that there are all these tools that can do all these cool things. And I think a lot of people are not seeing the cost savings of are you utilizing every aspect of the tool that you have now? And if you are, every aspect, and everyone knows how the tech tool works inside and out. If you are not, you should not be looking at another technology tool, because right there you're wasting money and time, and you have to train people, you have to onboard them, you have to sign for a contract, you're locked into this rate, you're doing all this with all these new tools, but you have this tool and you're only using it. How many times have we gone in and a CRM is being used as a Rolodex instead of a actual CRM tool that's managing the activities and identifying, okay, the customer takes this many touches in order to get over, the sales rep had to talk to them this many times, this person had this. Without that, you can't make informed decisions.
Yeah, it's quite a bit, surprisingly. But yeah, and again, sometimes it's just, you don't know, or, you just kind of maybe a little shy to kind of go in there and, experiment, try something new. So, you just using what you can, not necessarily what you should be using.
Eventually, Henry Ford did develop other colored cars than just black.
Yeah, but eventually. I think it was like after it came back and
until he fully utilized his system and realized, okay, this is running to its absolute 100% effectiveness. Now let's add something.
I don't know if that is, if it was like people were like, oh wait, we can get it in red, and they're like, let's switch to red.
I don't know. Maybe we should ask him.
We should. You know what we can do is we can make an AI.
I knew you were going to go this way. Dad, a nerd.
Sorry. But yeah, so I think we're wrapping up this one. So, we kind of might have got a little off the rails, but, what we like to do is look at some of these past business models and kind of have these open discussions with each other, brainstorm and see, like, we know this has worked in the past. How can we kind of use this mindset and this way of thinking and reapply it, today? And this is kind of a little look behind the curtain at the Wizard of Oz here, and kind of some of that we do internally, and seeing what can we do that's been proven to work, and how can we kind of replicate that success.
Yep. And I think that nowadays, new, flashy, this tool can do this, it helps us make this quicker, things like that, that is putting blinders on people. And we do have to take a step back and look at previous history that has worked and has been really successful, because there is something to learn from it. Now, I don't think that we need assembly lines or people are obviously going to be the best way to do it, and that's why we saying automation, or we would have data entry people and then we'd have these people, and obviously that model has changed. So changing with the times, but also mirroring and putting in the foundation is the biggest piece.
Yep. History doesn't always repeat, but it sometimes rhymes.
Sure.
Right? Is that not a saying?
I don't know.
I think everybody says that.
Everybody?
I don't know what I'm saying.
Everybody says it, Nick. All right.
Everyone
Well,
says it.
and that's a wrap.
And here's that banter.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Want to hear more from SFE's experts? Be sure to check out more episodes of Billable Banter on Spotify and Podbean. Reach out and connect with us via our socials. You can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, or visit our website at www.sfepartners.com.